Hey, how's it going, guys? As you know, we had a flood of Street Fighter V information the other day after the Red Bull tournament, and I'm going to be catching up with it one video at a time here. So let's start off with the teaser trailer that Capcom has released, showing off the new V-Triggers coming to Street Fighter V Arcade Edition. We're going to break it down character by character, and I'll share all the information that I know back to you guys. The big highlights of the trailer is new combo extenders, new mix-ups, and new abilities. So let's see what these new V-Triggers have to offer. So 11 characters are shown in this trailer, so not even half the cast, so there's still a lot that we still need to see, and even after seeing these V-Triggers, we still have questions that need to be answered. So let's start off with the first character it shows, and that's Zeku. We see him do a combo, and then he activates into his V-Trigger, where we see him do two upwards looking attacks, both in old form and young form. So first off, the first thing we notice is that Zeku is able to cancel his special move into V-Trigger, which he can't do with the first one. So right off the bat, this looks like a combo extender. It's just to get more burst off of his combos. And Zeku already has high damage output to begin with, so to add this on top of that, we can see some really high damaging combos for Zeku in general. The second thing we notice is that he switches forms mid like combo on this attack. You don't get to choose if he switches forms, he just automatically does it. It all looks canned, and both these attacks individually look like good anti-airs. So old Zeku already has good anti-airs, but this young Zeku form doesn't have a really reliable, like, invincible anti-air option like the old Zeku does. So this will give young Zeku a good anti-air option with a raw activation, assuming that if you activate this with young Zeku first, he's going to do that upwards twirl attack first, and then he switches to old form and does the upwards kick attack, so it's, it's reversed. This is also most likely a 2-bar V-Trigger because it seems like a one-time use. It doesn't seem like it's a passive active V-Trigger. It seems like you just activate it and then he does the uppercut. So hopefully this works off a bunch of different specials, like horizontal or his palm smash when young Zeku form, and then a bunch of his grams and such. So hopefully it's not just like limited and you have to combo in a very specific way. Hopefully it's off a lot of different things. I personally feel like this will be a more reliable V-Trigger than his first one, but you do lose the free slides, because one thing about the first V-Trigger in Zeku is that you can just blindly, do a normal attack and activate V-Trigger, and then you can confirm if it hits or not, right? Or and you get a second attempt as well, because when you go into his dash, his finisher is -2. It's, safe for the most part. But this one, it doesn't look like you can do that. If the opponent blocks your attack and Zeku goes straight into this uppercut looking attack right after, you're gonna get blown up for it. So it is something that you have to either combo into for extended burst, and it's something that you can use raw if your opponent jumps in on you as another defensive option, especially in young Zeku's form. But it's not something in neutral where you can just throw something out and then try to confirm to something. I also wonder if you'll get any Oki options from this, especially in the corner, since it does knock the opponent pretty close to you after you hit him. Alright, on to the next character now. It shows Ryu, and he activates his new V-Trigger, and we see him parry an attack and follow that up with a focus looking attack into a short combo into Super. So first off, we see that Ryu's hands are infused with this bright blue electricity, showing that it is an install, so it's a passive V-Trigger that's active for a long time, and it's even active during his Super animation, so we know it's not a one-time use. So after the activation, we clearly see that Ryu uses his V-skill to parry Urian's attack. So after he activates, it doesn't look like Ryu does anything. His hands just start to glow blue, and we see him manually go into his V-skill afterwards. And then after he parries with his V-skill, he gains this follow-up attack that punches the opponent and crumples them. So you might be wondering, why would this, V-Trigger be useful? Because Ryu, when he parries, he usually does get to do some type of punishment afterwards. But first off, Ryu's parry, doesn't always give you a punish. It's not 100% guaranteed, or even a strong punish at that, because if it's a light attack that you parry, for example, or if you're too far away, or because Ryu just doesn't recover instantly like a real parry does in Street Fighter 3. So if you look at this footage carefully, this enhanced parry actually does give you guaranteed damage, a guaranteed follow-up. So Urien is actually captured after Ryu parries him, and Urien actually is forced to the ground. So you see one frame, he's in the air, and the second frame, he's just brought down instantly to the ground, allowing Ryu to automatically land this punch. So even though the punch does look slowish, you're going to land it no matter what if you successfully parry. It's all canned animation. So this turns Ryu's parry into essentially a counterattack, an automatic counterattack, making it much more deadly. Considering that Ryu's parry doesn't have to worry about if the attacker's high or low or what side it's on, right? You just have to know when the attack is coming. So even if you parry the opponent's light attack, for example, or even a cross-up, or even a super, I'm going to assume that it automatically goes into this canned animation and hits them, making it really, really dangerous. Really, really dangerous when it's active. I also wonder what will happen if you parry Dhalsim's limbs. Would that mean Dhalsim is instantly brought in front of Ryu and then he crumples right in front of him? I also wonder what happens if you parry a projectile. If you parry a projectile, does it just normally parry and nothing happens, and the game knows when it's like a physical attack or a projectile, or does Ryu just punch thin air and then gets blown up for it? So I'm curious about that too. After you land this punch, the opponent is crumpled, which means that the next attack will flip him up in the air, and obviously you can combo afterwards. We see Ryu use an uppercut, but Ryu might be able to hit the opponent with a light attack, for example, which will reset him in the air, which will allow you to possibly dash the other side for a cross-up or a mix-up attempt. And you can hit with Tatsu if you prefer, better Oki afterwards, and there's other things probably you can combo into. You probably get a hard knockdown too from this crumple, so you might not want to follow up with anything at all, and your opponent is planted and getting up right in front of you, which would be good for you because he needs options like that. And when Ryu does his super, he says Shinku Hadoken. So that means that his super is definitely not Denjin, which means that it's not enhanced with his V-trigger, and it also means that his V-trigger doesn't go away after he does his super, which is also nice. We don't know if he gets anything else besides this enhanced parry, but we knew what the V-trigger name of this is, and it suggests that this is mainly what it does. This is also another 2-bar V-trigger, we know that for sure looking at the screenshots, and it only seems to drain about 25% of it on use. So this will be more suited to players who want to be, rewarded for landing parries. A lot of, it just gives more incentive to want to learn what you need to parry in this game and give you stronger defense overall. And if they buff Ryu's first V-trigger, it will be debatable which playstyle you will prefer, because his first V-trigger is really weak right now because it just drains too quickly. You can only throw about 4 or 5 fireballs before it's out, and that's if you throw those fireballs right away after activating. So unless they do buff that first V-trigger, it'll be debatable which one you want to use depending on your style. Alright, next up we have M.Bison. Bison combos into his second V-trigger, then we see him follow up with a crouching medium punch cancelled into a new attack, and then we see Bison do a target combo in the other clip into another new attack which launches the opponent, and he finishes with a Psycho Crusher. So, the first special we see looks like a hit grab. I doubt it's unblockable because he combos into it, and for that same reason I don't think it's an overhead attack either, which is something that's requested from a lot of Bison players. But it looks like it hits the opponent and it goes into a grab animation. So after you land this new hit grab attack, it plants some kind of Psycho Bomb or Psycho C4 into Balrog's head, and it knocks him down. And we notice that Balrog remains purple long after the attack hits him, and then he's knocked down. We then see in the next shot, so the next clip, that Balrog is still glowing purple before the combo even begins. So we know that this definitely shows that it does indeed debuff him when you land this hit grab and plant some kind of bomb, like I said. So after the target combo, Bison cancels, you see him clench his fist and he detonates this bomb, which launches the opponent up in the air, and he combos into this and makes the debuff go away basically. So landing this attack in itself seems really powerful, just planting this bomb or whatever. If the opponent lets his guard down against Bison, Bison can just detonate randomly and it'll launch him up. So say the opponent jumps, for example, jumps in on Bison or jumps away, right? Tries to move away from him. This will basically plant the opponent, keep him still, keep him more docile so Bison could do what he does best, and that's pressure you and keep the offense going. And I'm curious if Bison can make, if the opponent can make this debuff go away if they land a hit on Bison. I also doubt this is some kind of timer, because Bison goes into animation with it, so that would kind of suck if it's timed and then Bison is forced to be vulnerable for a second, right? The opponent still has to block after the detonation, but I just doubt that's how it works. Now, after it hits, it launches up the opponent. So we see Bison combo and juggle into his Psycho Crusher, which is another move, new move that he gets from this V trigger. And obviously this V trigger, it looks like it's an install type. It's active. You can see him glowing like his first V trigger, so it's not like a one-time use. But I wonder if you can follow up with anything else after it launches up the opponent. Like if you can do his jumping medium punch air target combo, for example. It looks like he recovers like more than fast enough to do that, which would lead into super and things like that. Now, the Psycho Crusher in itself, in its own right, looks really good if it's not a charge attack, because it moves really fast and it's a forward moving special. We don't know if it's invincible, we don't know if it eats fireballs, and we don't know if it might even be a reversal option. But just on its own, the Psycho Crusher is also it's always been a good special move, right? So I'm really curious if it's a charge, because it's tied to his V trigger, obviously. So this is a 2-bar V trigger. We know this from the screenshots, which sounds really powerful considering that it is a passive use of V trigger, and you can use this multiple times even after the detonation, and even after the Psycho Crusher, it's still active. So that's pretty damn good. Compared to the first one, I mean, what does he lose? He loses his enhanced dash. You can cross up the opponent. He loses his teleport, skull diver. His EX stomps are different as well. So this will be definitely debatable on which one you want to use. But if you're able to reliably combo into this Psycho Bomb kind of thing, it will definitely make Bison really scary and put the opponent in huge trouble afterwards. And we have to see how good the Psycho Crusher is as well on its own. Alright, moving on. Now we have Nash. We see Nash cancels his combo into his new V trigger, which he follows up with a series of juggles and new attacks into super. So this is obviously another install type V trigger where it's passive and active for a while. We see the gem in Nash's head glow after activating, and it's still glowing even after he does his super. So we see Nash gets 2 new attacks. The first one is this flash kick looking move, and the other is a giant power dunk looking move. We see the same dash animation before both attacks. So Nash kind of like dashes sideways, all anime-like, and which implies that in order to do either of these attacks, he has to do the dash first, because he's dashing and canceling into both these moves. So his V trigger is kind of similar to Zeku, I guess, where you use this super fast dash and you have follow-up buttons that determine which move you do. So for example, maybe kick will do the flash kick attack and punch will do the dunk. So I'm curious if the dash in itself has any properties such as invincibility, right? Or go through fireballs or something. Second, the flash kick looking attack probably can't be used as a reversal because Nash has to dash first in order to do it. But it can still be a very strong anti-air option, even full screen if you mix this up with a slow sonic boom and your opponent jumps from full screen and thinks that he's safe because he can dash and anti-air into this. Now the dunk special move looks like it OTGs because we see Abigail lying on the floor, and I highly doubt this is an overhead. But that'd be pretty crazy if it is. So this is still active even after using both these new attacks in a single combo, which tells me this is probably a 3-bar V trigger. That's usually the case. So this looks like more offensive tools for Nash. I mean, Capcom has been trying to turn this character into a more, rushdown type character, and this V trigger will give him more powerful combos than the first one and just help his offense more. Alright, now we have Ed. So we see Ed combos into his new activation and then proceeds to do a long combo extension into super. So another install type V trigger where it's passive and active for a long time. Ed is glowing in Psycho Power, similar to how Bison looks when he activates his V trigger. So we see Ed is able to cancel his projectile into his V skill. So that's really interesting. Ed's V skill is now enhanced as well. It's not the same, and instead of bringing the opponent towards him where he knocks them down with his punch attack, Ed instead power dunks the opponent and goes towards the opponent and puts them into this crush counter spin state. So this gives Ed some big combo extensions because he's allowed to combo afterwards, even from a combo. And I'm curious on what happens if Ed holds down the V skill. Does it change it from there because it's supposed to flip up the opponent, which allows combos afterwards? Or what does the down V skill version do? Does it take the opponent from the air and bring him back down and allows you to combo afterwards? I'm curious about that. And is there anything else enhanced with Ed, or is it just his V skill that's changed? I doubt it. I'm sure something else. We see a bunch of special moves in this video, including his flicker and his projectile, so I'm not sure if it changes his upper, for example. So overall, this might be more reliable than Ed's first V-trigger, just because Ed generally wants to, you know, mix up and reset the opponent from his first one. Where this one, you can, you know, confirm into it and have this active passive if you didn't help, you know, if you could just activate it raw and you have this active passive and then all your combos become more lethal because you can cancel into it from his V skill. This can possibly be a 3-bar V trigger because of its passive use, and I just wonder in general like what special moves he can cancel his V skill into and continue these combos, if it just amplifies the other specials, because we just see him use his projectile into it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he can use his upper into it, for example. And I'm also really worried that that first hit of that flicker misses at the end of this combo because, you know, Ed does have this issue with his combos dropping for no reason, so hopefully Capcom fixes that. Okay, moving on to R.Mika. Nadeshiko enters the stage with a chair attack as Mika combos and mixes up the opponent. So, the first thing we notice in this is that Nadeshiko takes a long ass time to come out on the stage after activating. So, we see Mika lift up both her arms, which is like her first V-trigger, where it's like a tell for the opponent to know what type of delay it is. So, I'm going to assume that you can alter the timing on this as well, just because I see her lift up both her arms, and Nadeshiko takes a long time, which is the same thing as her first one. Nadeshiko then comes out on the opposite side of Mika and does 2 attacks with a large gap in between both attacks. So there's a long pause between it. So unlike the first V trigger, you get multiple chances to pressure your opponent, because Nadeshiko normally just hits once with the first one, whereas this one she does 2 attacks. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mika can command throw the opponent in between the swings of the chair because of the gap in between them. I doubt that the chair does 2 hits and combos twice. I think that it just hits once and there's like a little reset situation there, and then it hits the second time. The second chair attack looks like Nadeshiko actually throws it. She swings it forward and it looks like she's letting go of it. So it's probably a projectile attack. I can't tell from just watching the video. Giving Mika another chance to close in though if it is a projectile. If, like, say the opponent jumps out of your V trigger and they avoid Nadeshiko, and then Nadeshiko will then throw the chair at the opponent, which will allow Mika to close the gap and get close, even if the opponent avoided it the first time. This is confirmed to be a 3-bar V trigger. We see it from the screenshots, so this will be more costly than our first one. I'm curious on how much damage the chair attack will actually do. And since this looks like a single use V trigger at such a high cost with 3 bars, and it looks very, very similar to our first one, so it's basically a stronger mix-up because the chair hits twice rather than a one-hit attack at a higher cost is what you're paying for. So I wonder if there's different variations as well with this. Like, for example, in Nadeshiko on the first V trigger, she either comes straight down or both sides of the screen, and I wonder if there's maybe you can alter what kind of chair attack she does, or you can change what side of the screen she comes on, left or right. So more mix-up options for Mika. Okay, we have Birdie now. Birdie launches the opponent with his Flame Breath and combos into a new chain attack. So Birdie once again eats a giant chili pepper and clearly anti-airs the opponent with a more vertical looking Flame Breath. It just goes straight up. The startup is noticeably faster, and it should be because it looks like it's clearly an anti-air activation. And I wonder if Birdie is able to combo into this from the ground. So Birdie's first V-trigger, you can use it as anti-air, but it's quite slow, so it's not practical. But this first one, or the second one, looks much more practical. But unlike his first one, it doesn't look like he can combo this from the ground because it's so vertical and high up. Birdie's chains around his arms also become on fire, and his chains are just lit up, and showing that this is an install type. It is a passive V-trigger that's active. Birdie then is able to juggle into his second V-trigger with his bullhead, just like he can with his first V-trigger if you combo into the flame. And then after his bullhead, he cancels into this new chain attack, extending the combo further. So the chain attack does 2 hits and knocks the opponent towards him, which is scary in its own right, because when Birdie's close, you're always scared of his very damaging command grab. We don't know if the chain hits low. We don't know if the chain goes through fireballs. I'm going to assume it does go through fireballs, making Birdie threatening even when far away while this is active. We see Birdie still has his V-trigger even after doing the chain attack and canceling into it, since the chains are still on fire after he lands it in the video. So this definitely gives Birdie more neutral options and combo options as well, since he can cancel his bullhead into it. He has more ways to deal with zoning because he's got a long range chain, and can make the opponent think twice on jumping in on him even before he activates, because the activation is so much faster and it clearly looks like an anti-air. Okay, we got Ibuki now. Ibuki takes out this giant shuriken and throws it at the opponent, which boomerangs back to her. So we see Ibuki special cancel into this V-trigger from a kunai, just like her first V-trigger, and the shuriken hits multiple times and keeps the opponent in hit stun, allowing to continue comboing afterwards. So after a short amount of time, the shuriken then comes back at this downward angle at the top of the screen, and then hits the opponent multiple times again, which keeps the opponent suspended in the air long enough for Ibuki to juggle again afterwards. So we do not know how many bars this V-trigger is, but assuming that it's a one-time use, it's probably going to be a 2-bar V-trigger, so it gives her a cheaper option. This looks more reliable and more straightforward than Ibuki's bombs, her first V-trigger, because if you don't combo into her bombs, they're just not too threatening, even with the altered timers. I mean, the bombs are more useful when you actually combo into it successfully, and then you can set up landing the second one. But if you're like, you know, if you activate it raw or whatever, you kind of panic and you just can't find a way to combo into it, then it loses its use for sure. So this V-trigger just looks more useful. You don't have to combo into it, since it does multiple hits. Even if the opponent blocks it, you still get pressure. They're still, you know, stuck to block. And it also comes back a second time, which gives you a second opportunity to open up the opponent. So I wonder if you can alter the trajectory on its way back, if you can make it come back straight and not at a downward angle. So I'm curious on that. You kind of trick the opponent to want to jump over it, right? And then it'll hit him in the air. And just this does look like another strong V-trigger for Ibuki that's going to allow a lot of mix-up options and combo extensions, and just more reliable, and you don't have to be as worried about it becoming useless if you just can't find a good combo opportunity. You can just use it raw and neutral. Okay, let's talk about some Menat now. Menat summons her orbs and throws them all out at once, multiple times. So the formation of the orbs is different than her first V-trigger, and it doesn't look like each orb is tied to a button on your controller. Instead, Menat sends them all out at once, the first time straightforward, making combo extensions pretty easy. We see a combo to her slide, or her sweep I mean, but I'm sure you can combo into other things. She then summons all 6 orbs a second time, showing us that this is an install type allowing multiple uses from the activation. The second attack sends all 6 orbs up in the air, and then they rain down on the opponent in 2 waves, 2 separate waves. So the second part gives Menat a good amount of time to mix up and pressure the opponent and get in. And, you know, Menat has one of the strongest V-triggers in the game for sure. And she sometimes just lives and dies by landing it and being successful with it. Mix up the opponent, you know, the opponent not giving a V-reversal on her or not getting away from her and letting it slowly drain. This second V-trigger, it just looks easier to use in general and gives you multiple chances because you can summon all 6 orbs again, unlike her first one. It also just seems like an easier overall V-trigger to use than her first, maybe if you're a beginner with Menat, for example. So I wonder if there are any other type of variations she can do with this second V-trigger. I'm sure it's not just those 2 variations. I'm sure there's other ones as well. Maybe you send them in 2 waves forward or whatever. But I think that her first V-trigger will always be her strongest because of just the amount of depth and options you can do with it. But this second one just seems like a more straightforward version. Okay, we have Guile now. So Guile activates and does a series of flash kicks that juggle the opponent. So when Guile activates, we see the sonic swirls around his legs rather than his arms this time. So this is an install type, it's a passive V-trigger. This enhances Guile's flash kicks, allowing you to extend combos off of them. So the first flash kick that he does has this strange hit animation. If you look at it in slow motion, we see this delayed swirl spark hit Alex after he lands the kick. So it's showing that it might shoot out or place a projectile on the screen afterwards. I'm just guessing though. It might place down like a V-skill projectile, for example. Some people are thinking that Guile gets a new like non-charge command for his flash kick, and you can see Guile walk forward during this combo after the first combo, but he does have enough time to charge. He goes hard punch, crouching, medium punch. I mean, that's his B and B. He does have enough time to charge for a flash kick, and he also definitely has enough time to charge for his second flash kick after he lands the first one. So I doubt it. It's probably still a charge. He then juggles into the EX version right after his first flash kick, and then it hits multiple times and knocks the opponent far away. So Guile's first V-trigger is super strong. It allows him to pressure his opponent multiple times for free almost. He also gains a super fast EX projectile with it, and it just does a ton of damage. So Guile already has great anti-air options as well, so I'm really curious on how many bars this V-trigger is, and if the normal flash kick does have a projectile property to it, because I'm wondering, why would you want to choose this V-trigger over the first one, just if it's only something that enhances his flash kick? So there's more I want to see from it. And finally we have Ken. This one is really straightforward. Ken does a super high vertical uppercut. So obviously this is Shinryuken. This is something that we expected Ken to get as a second super, for example, and it looks like this is forced and canned, and he does this right after his activation. So obviously this looks like a great anti-air, of course, and you can combo into this as well. We see him do his line breaker target combo into this. This is a 2-bar V-trigger. This is confirmed. Look at the screenshot, and we can't tell if this is like a one-time use because the screen just, it ends the trailer right after. But I'm going to assume it's a one-time use. So the question is, how much damage does this do? Is it high damage output? I can see Ken combo into this from a bunch of things such as his air, EX Tatsu, because you can juggle into this uppercut probably. And it doesn't look like you can, lead into super after this, unfortunately. So this might be for, Ken players who want an earlier V-trigger and give him some added burst to his combos and give him more defensive options in general. We don't know if he can use this as a reversal. His first V-trigger is really strong, but it's 3-bar V-trigger. It's a little later, so maybe if you Ken players want some extra burst, this might be another good option. It's a cool looking V-trigger. So guys, that's it. That's all the characters. I tried to make this as concise as I can. I'm sorry. I wrote down the notes for this. We went over for this stream. So hopefully Capcom will show off more V-triggers and we can break down more of them. Let me know in the comments if there's anything I missed, guys. And don't forget to like the video and be sure to subscribe to the channel, as of course I'll be covering Street Fighter V Arcade Edition very, very closely and keeping you guys posted. So till then, guys, take care.